than Will Smith, which makes no sense, but I have the same amount of BET awards as Sam Smith. Does that make sense to you guys? Smith are neck and neck at the Black Entertainment Television.
I don't think I could marry like a white woman. Like, I don't think so. Maybe,
Why
but
is
I don't
that?
think so. Because I need someone racist like me.
Donald Glover, better known by his stage name Childish Gambino, has come out of the woods roaring with anger at Hollywood for what he believes are measures designed to stifle his career. The musician-cum-actor expressed his frustration at the recent BET Awards when he presented the accolade for Album of the Year. His statements rehash the infamous Jay-Z speech at the Grammy Awards, in which he lambasted the Academy for ignoring his wife's hard work when it came to Album of the Year.
Than Will Smith, which makes no sense, but I have the same amount of BET awards as Sam Smith. Does that make sense to you guys?
His statements rehash the infamous Jay-Z speech at the Grammy Awards, in which he lambasted the Academy for ignoring his wife's hard work when it came to Album of the Year. Just like Donald Glover, Jay thought that the whole selection criteria didn't make sense and was a blight on the Academy's perceived fairness.
I don't want to embarrass this young lady, but she has more Grammys than everyone and never won Album of the Year. So even by your own metrics, that doesn't work.
However, many fans feel that Glover's rants were much ado about nothing. They think that he was just being childish, as his name appears to suggest. Didn't he design his own downfall when he treated his female employees like trash? Some fans pointed out. Others also asked, didn't his poor treatment of blacks in general affect his popularity among blacks, hence the lack of awards at the BET?
In the Television Critics Association panel, which was held earlier this week, Donald Glover addressed criticism that his show Atlanta is not for black people.
However, his defenders claim that this should take nothing from his achievements. They opine that music awards recognize achievements and not necessarily how the awardee treats people. So if BT and Hollywood at large were to practice fairness, then they'd ignore the rumors and stick to the milestones that Glover had chalked in the year under review. The fans also pointed out that the rumors about the treatment of his employees could all be a ploy by the powers that be to bring him down. Y'all know how unforgiving the industry can be, especially when you seem to be a powerful, multi-talented black man who is unwilling to do the bidding of the elites. I mean, we can mention the names of Cat Williams, Mark Curry, and Dave Chappelle, who have suffered various setbacks because they wouldn't bend over for the elite.
I've had to turn down $50 million 4 times.
However, we've also seen other leading black men in Hollywood who had the potential to outshine everyone and become legends, but got involved in shady dealings that landed them in jail. So where does Donald Glover stand in all of these? Are his statements against the BET warranted, or is he the artist of his own downfall? I have all the answers right here. So stick and stay as I dissect all the controversies surrounding the multifaceted actor so you can decide whether his rants are valid or simply ramblings of a jealous soul.
Sense to you guys? Me and Sam Smith are neck and neck at the Black Entertainment Television.
Donald Glover is undoubtedly one of the most talented artists in recent memory. His repertoire is envied among his peers. A quick scan through his IMDb page shows his outstanding talent and contributions to the industry. He's an actor, a writer, a rapper, a producer, and an executive producer who has excelled in every field he has ventured into. He was the writer for the hit NBC sitcom 30 and came into prominence when he starred in the sitcom Community, which aired on NBC from 2009 to 2014. On the music front, too, the actor has made his mark, releasing hit songs and tantalizing visuals to match. He was destined for the top, probably higher heights than the likes of Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson.
First met him and you first started seeing him performing, you realized how special he was and continues to be. He's alive.
Yeah.
However, the versatile entertainer couldn't reach the heights expected of him. He appears to be a B-list celebrity popular only in America, but doesn't seem to have worldwide appeal. Some fans feel that he hasn't gotten the push that he deserves from Hollywood, and that it is possible the elites are by his potential. Thus, they have placed several obstacles in his way to prevent him from achieving A-list status. Interestingly, Donald appears to believe that theory, hence his rant at the recent version of the BET Awards. He seems to buy into that popular fan notion that the Grammys are for the whites and BET for the blacks. So, he really didn't expect to win anything much at the Grammys. However, he is also struggling to understand how an award scheme designed to celebrate black excellence and achievements would give the same amount of awards to whites and blacks alike.
But I have the same amount of BET awards as Sam Smith. Does that make sense to you guys?
Some fans have observed that the elites of Hollywood usually struggle to contain and control black artists who are bigger than the industry. They see these artists as threats because they aren't afraid to expose the evil and rot in Tinseltown. Thus, they do all they can to bring them down. From using the media as a tool to organize smear campaigns against them to digging up any dirt that could get on them to tarnish their images, the Hollywood elites would do everything within their power to bring black artists down. And if everything else fails, they resort to assassination, leaving no trace of their involvement. A typical example is Michael Jackson. In the latter part of his career, the king of pop got bigger than his music label and even bought a stake in the company. His undoubted talents as a singer, dancer, actor, and overall entertainer shot him up to the top of the food chain.
I just finished watching the Off the Wall documentary, and if you ever think you're doing well in your career, you should definitely go watch that because you're absolutely nowhere near what this guy was doing.
As the best entertainer of his time, the speechless singer used his status to fight for his rights and the rights of other entertainers. He spoke about the bad treatment of black artists by their respective labels. According to MJ, the labels used the blacks to make lots of money and then paid them peanuts at the end, leaving them penniless at the end of their respective careers. He mentioned how James Brown's label and left him with nothing to his name. He knew they were doing exactly the same to him, so he blindsided them by purchasing a stake in the company without their knowledge. Seeing that the king of pop was becoming uncontrollable, they plotted to bring him down by refusing to promote his albums. They scheduled a physically demanding tour, which they knew MJ won't be able to fulfill due to his failing health. Michael blasted his label, pointing accusing fingers at the then CEO Tommy Mottola for his shenanigans.
These will be my final show performances in London. This will be it.
When Michael had had enough of the messy treatment by Sony, he organized his last tour, labeling it "This Is It." His demeanor at the press conference was sober and less exciting. He looked like someone who was exhausted from fighting the establishment and wanted to quit. He made the announcement much to the anger of his label, but he wasn't scared. After fetching over 750 million album sales for his label, he was exhausted and willing to quit. However, MJ wasn't retiring from the industry. Rather, he was looking to take on an executive role where he would help other burgeoning black talents. Sadly, his dream wouldn't materialize because the elites knew he had the money, gravitas, and popularity to pull it off. So they used the media as a propaganda tool against MJ. Soon, several men and boys came out to expose the Pop King for touching them inappropriately when he spent time with them on his Neverland ranch.
We were together. It happened. There was no night that went by that I was with him that he didn't me.
These accusations soiled MJ's stellar image in the music industry and dragged his name in the mud. A few months later, Oprah Winfrey rubbed salt in MJ's injuries by producing a documentary titled Leaving Neverland that gave Michael's victims the opportunity to delve into details of what happened on the ranch. Now, I don't intend to digress or make this video about MJ, but I'm detailing his life and struggles so you can compare it with what Donald Glover is going through right now and spot the similarities. In Glover's case, the execs didn't get children to testify against him, but they had a few women who had worked with him to level accusations against him. Fortunately for Glover, the accusations weren't of an S nature, which would have gained more media and mainstream attention, but it had to do with lowballing his staff. Some black women also accused him of disrespecting women of color in his Swarm TV series.
As a director, to describe someone who is playing a black woman as an animal and not expect that the audience is also feeling that. It, like, validates narratives of people who don't already like Black.
For long, Glover had been accused of having a low esteem of Black women. Interestingly, he has never denied the accusations, but had given hints of what he thought about women in his interviews. Speaking to Vulture magazine, the 40-year-old actor, who also directed the TV series Swarm, claimed that he gave little to no directions to Dominique Fishback, who played Dre in the series. He reportedly told Dre, "You don't have to find the humanity in your character. That's the audience's job. Think of it more like an animal and less like a person." This wasn't the first time Glover was blasted for his perceived notion and depiction of Black women. In his FX show titled Atlanta, Glover portrayed a two-dimensional character that had complex and tender depictions. However, he caricatured the Black female characters, appearing to ridicule Black womanhood. Of course, as I said earlier, the actor-cum-director hasn't responded to any of these rumors, probably because they don't reflect his personal character.
I don't think I could marry like a white woman. Like, I don't think so. Maybe,
Why
but
is
I don't
that?
think so. Because I need someone racist like me.
The whites also don't particularly pander to him because of his racial comments in the past. Glover has been on record claiming that he can't date a white woman because they are generally not racist. Explaining the rationale behind the statement, the Swarm director said he needed to see the world and understand the struggles of being Black in racist Hollywood. However, he couldn't possibly do that if he were dating a white woman because he would usually get a pass for things that white people find offensive. Many of his critics would overlook his shortcomings and paper over his missteps. However, dating a Black woman would help him touch base with the Black community and understand the battles they have to fight. Interestingly, his statements were viewed with skepticism because the dude is married to Michelle White, who is white. His marriage with White fed into the notion that Black successful men often shun Black women to date White because the Blacks were often aggressive and unsophisticated.
I find it really interesting that Black women have really supported him and have tried, like alternative Black women, nerdy Black girls, have really supported him from the beginning. Because this was back when, I mean, he wasn't anywhere as big as he is now. But
the critics feel that childish Gambino heavily let down the Black community when he chose to marry Michelle, a lady she's been dating since 2016. This was somebody who had openly claimed that he was a and wouldn't want to marry a Black woman. He changed his mind at the least opportunity, shunned all the Black women in his life, and settled with a white woman. In the eyes of his critics, Glover wasn't a trustworthy character who didn't practice what he preached. Gambino and White were first spotted on a vacation in Hawaii, and since then, the couple has welcomed 3 children. The actor is very protective of his family, doing his best to keep them out of the public eye. He once told Interview magazine, "I don't think life is real unless some things are just for you, things that should not or cannot be shared. I think the younger generation is going to have a hard time distinguishing whether something is for them or for others, and I think it could play out as a diminished sense of self. You really have to know what you would do if no one else was watching." Now, if all these accusations against Glover are true, then it would be quite difficult to tell whether he is the architect of his own downfall or whether the elite are behind all his woes. The actor appears to think so, insinuating that other people are putting impediments his way because his talent is unmatched. We know for sure that jealousy exists within the circles of Tinseltown. At least Cat Williams told us about it in his now famous interview with Shannon Sharpe. The veteran actor exposed some of his colleagues who were jealous of others and would do everything to dull their shine. He explained that jealousy and envy were rampant in the Black community, quite different from the whites. Cat spoke about how Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, and Ricky Smiley hated Bernie Mac and wanted to destroy his career.
But I turned it down. Why? Because you shit on Bernie. And I know the truth. You think I'm gonna let you shit on Bernie and then come get me? I'm the next king?
He claimed that Steve Harvey would call studios to take roles from Bernie Mac simply because he couldn't stand the shine of his colleague. Now, is it possible that the same thing is being done to Glover? Are people stealing movie roles from him so that he won't have the opportunity to climb the success ladder? Well, it could just be the case because the people in Hollywood appear to have the crab mentality of pulling others down and stepping on them to become great. When Bernie Mac was first cast in the Ocean's 11 franchise, Steve Harvey reportedly called the studio and asked for the role to be given to him, but he was declined. The studio stuck with Bernie, and the results were awesome. Explaining why the studio won't cast Steve Harvey, Cat claimed that the Family Feud talk show host had no range as an actor.
Then you asked it, why you not a movie star? I didn't want to be a movie star. This the same Negro that hated on Bernie with this same...
Now, many felt that Kat's words were just a figment of his imagination and that Steve Harvey didn't need to be jealous of Bernie Mac. They explained that the talk show host was equally talented and commanded a huge audience regardless of the city he toured. Thus, he didn't have to be jealous of Bernie Mac. However, a close friend of Bernie co-signed Kat's words, claiming that he was a veteran comedian telling the truth. The close friend, DJ Ed Lover, claimed that Bernie Mac told him about how jealous Steve Harvey and his colleagues were of him. The stuff that Cat Williams said about Steve Harvey calling to try to get Bernie's role on Ocean's 11, and that kind of stuff. Bernie told me out of his own mouth, the New York native said. I believe Bernie Mac when he said Steve Harvey hated on him. Apparently, Bernie Mac wasn't the only victim of Steve's envy. Cat also exposed the TV show host's uncanny ability to steal the jokes and TV shows of his colleagues, one of them being Mark Curry.
Okay. The same Steve that went to go watch Mark Curry do his whole sitcom and then stole everything Mark Curry had. Now,
Cat didn't just stop there. He accused Steve Harvey of stealing Curry's TV sitcom Hanging with Mr. Cooper and turning it into his own show, The Steve Harvey Show, with the same format. Now, Steve got a sitcom where he the principal and he wear a suit, Cat said, and then he gets this high top fade, making all black men think he got the best lineup in the business. And it's a man unit. Then you ask him, why you not a movie star? I didn't want to be a movie star. Aside from stealing Curry's sitcom, Steve Harvey purportedly pilfered Mark Curry's jokes and performed that as his set. He explained that Harvey once visited Curry while he was performing at the Comedy Store and then plagiarized his jokes. Curry himself affirmed Kat's accusations when he said that Steve Harvey was in the habit of stealing his jokes. The set in question was a Halloween joke where Curry was dressed as a postman because his family was poor. Steve allegedly stole the joke and used it during one of his stand-up routines and on his show, Little Big Shots.
All right, Halloween material, one Halloween. I'm watching, somebody called me and said, man, homeboy doing your material. So he did my whole Halloween run. And I know he didn't think of it. And this is true stuff that really happened to me.
Mark Curry then called Steve Harvey out for using his jokes without his permission, but he was unrepentant, and neither did he apologize. Mark was ready to cut Harvey some slack because it was possible that it was one of the writers who plagiarized the joke and not Harvey himself. However, Harvey wasn't ready for any apology, but doubled down on his initial stance. Curry reminded Harvey that he was now rich and didn't have to steal people's jokes. And that right there is the sad part. In the late 80s and early 90s, Curry was a bigger star, with hit sitcoms and outstanding stand-up routines. However, Steve is now a bigger star than Mark Curry, even though he purportedly pulled him down to rise to the very top. Mark still tours and puts up great performances from time to time, but his star appears to have been overshadowed by Steve Harvey. Interestingly, Steve's pal and fellow comedian Cedric Entertainer has also been accused of pilfering jokes.
Cedric comes to the Comedy Store. He watches me in the audience. He comes backstage. He tells me what a great job I did and how much he loves the joke. 2 years later, he's doing that as his last.
According to Cat Williams, Cedric once visited him at the Comedy Store when he was performing his set. Later, Cedric came backstage to congratulate Cat on his spectacular performance. However, unknown to Cat, Cedric would use his jokes 2 years later in one of his sets. Cat narrated that what saved him and made his story believable was that he had performed the joke twice on BT's Comic View, and the producers liked it so much that they included it in their reels for the show's commercial. Cedric stole the joke and changed a few details to make it look like it was his original joke. Now, the reason I bring up all these is to show you that jealousy and envy in Hollywood is real. People feel more talented than they are, and thus put several obstacles in their way to prevent them from attaining the heights set for them. Many fans feel that the same thing could be happening to Donald Glover. Though we don't have any evidence of anyone stealing his material or plotting to bring him down, we can't completely rule out the idea. However, it is only a matter of time before the truth rises to the surface like a cork. Just like it happened to Monique.
Came out and said, I did offer Monique the butler. But as he said to me, he said, Mo, at the time I didn't have no power and I didn't have no money. So when Oprah said she wanted it.
Monique's situation is eerily similar to Donald Glover's. I mean, both of them are multi-talented. They can sing, act, and crack ribs with their witty statements. Like Donald, Monique was set for the top, but her dream has never materialized because she feels that elites like Tyler Perry and Oprah Winfrey have deliberately stifled her growth. In the interview with Shannon Sharpe, the comedian claimed that she was cast to play a role in Lee Daniels' The Butler, but Oprah called the director and demanded her role. Sadly, that wasn't the only time. In another movie that detailed the life of one of the best stand-up acts of all time, Richard Pryor, Monique was offered the role of Pryor's grandmother. However, she never got to act in the movie as Oprah Winfrey called again and demanded the role be given to her.
Lee Daniels was getting ready to do a biopic on Richard Pryor, and he offered me the grandmother, who then calls Lee Daniels and says, I want to be the grandmother.
So, in Monique's estimation, Oprah, Lee Daniels, and Tyler Perry are the architects of her downfall. They had allegedly plotted her disgrace after she starred in the movie Precious and won an award for Best Support Actress in that same movie. According to Monique, they blackballed her because she won't acquiesce to the demands of doing promo for the movie out of her own pocket. She felt that the production had to bear the cost of her media duties after she had already accepted $50,000 for that role. She had refused to attend the movie's premiere and instead spent the time with her family. Monique's fight to stamp her mark in Hollywood saw her battling the streaming giant Netflix. The company had paid her $500,000 for a Netflix special while giving Amy Schumer and the others over $10 million each. The comedian took matters into her own hands and sued the company, which later settled for an amount believed to be in the 10s of millions.
All right, now Monique and Netflix have reached a settlement in the lawsuit, the discrimination lawsuit that was citing racial and gender biases. According to
some fans think the Hollywood elites don't like it when black actors and entertainers prosper, like in the cases of Monique, Cat Williams, and Bernie Mac. Michael Jackson and Prince are also great examples of the elites stifling the growth of black actors. So, it is possible Donald Glover is going through the same patch, given his undoubted talent. However, some fans urge him not to give up, given what both Kat and Monique are enjoying now when they didn't give up in the fight against the establishment. They clawed their way and even sued big companies if need be, so they could enjoy their share of the Hollywood cake. The only impediment could probably be how he allegedly treated women, because if it's true that he's misogynistic, then he really has a long way to go. Fans are hoping that Donald Glover will shake off the dust, bounce back stronger, and eventually take a seat at the table. For now, we cross our fingers to see what the future holds for Donald Glover, aka Childish Gambino. This brings us to the end of today's video. Thanks for watching.